Carry On Drive. It's a local organization that was developed just to help out with local foster youth. Currently, we carry carry-on sized luggage. We try and get that from people and make sure that it makes it into the hands of foster youth. Reason being, because they are constantly moving in trash bags. From my personal experience, I went into foster care when I was about 16 and a half. Super lucky to be that late in the game. But I had like an awareness of what was going on around me and could see the flaws, but could also have my backing and my growth and stuff and know that I'm going to be okay. But I lived in 6 homes in a year and a half. And each time it was the same situation. They just hand you a trash bag and say, hey, put all the things you love and hold closest to you into this trash bag and leave because we don't want you anymore. And it makes you feel like trash.
Yeah, I can imagine. That doesn't sound like a pleasant experience.
I've broken bags on the driveway while leaving.
Just because it ripped, you mean, from like all the weight of your stuff?
Yeah. I'm a nerd, so I had like 5-10 books in the bottom of a trash bag and my clothes on top, and, and then it's just like all over the gravel driveway, and I'm like, sick. Now I'm just gonna pick up all my trash and put it into another trash bag. But there's not like a whole lot that I could have done at 27 years old as not an established individual to help out with kids in my previous condition, but collecting bags is a start.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's a really cool story and a good cause, so I support it.
We get to develop soon, though. As I get all my paperwork and stuff, we're going to do a driver's education program for foster youth. Currently, across all of the United States, only 3% of foster youth have their license at age 18.
Oh, really?
Yes.
3%?
3% at 18.
That's...
Come 21, it only goes up to 7%. At that point, you are officially emancipated if you didn't go to college, and you're just thrown to the wolves, and 93% don't even have transportation.
So you can go to foster care up until you're 21, technically, if you're in college, maybe?
Technically. So in college, you kind of just get grants, but you don't have a caseworker anymore, and you got no help other than that. But if you don't go to college, then they set you up in like housing units and help you get a job and start teaching you. When they first moved you into a housing unit, you're not paying any bills. They slowly wean you off of that and kind of teach you how to do that. I think it's called... I can't even remember. It's like independent living. That's what it is. It's a program called independent living. So they try and teach you how to live on your own, but that's still only 3 years of still like you just came into the world and you're like, I know what I'm doing. Like, screw you. Like,
fake it till you make it.
Just pay my bills as long as you want. Like, so it doesn't really work out, and you don't really get any skill sets other than knowing exactly what is expected of you as a bare minimum as a human. You have to pay bills. You have to show up to work. But it doesn't teach you skills like I was interested in mechanics. I had to go to college if I wanted to learn anything about that. There wasn't anybody there to help me out with that or anything like that. I didn't get my license till I was 23. My ex-boyfriend had to teach me how to drive because nobody else took that time. If you think about it, when you first get your temporary license, you have your parent sign off. You don't have a parent in foster care.
Yeah. I actually had to teach my ex-girlfriend how to drive. That's funny. But so how did you end up like getting like away from being in foster care?
I just went straight into college. Like I had turned 18 2 weeks before I was supposed to move into the dorm. And they did what was called a kinship placement. So I went and stayed with one of my cousins for 1 week. We had a blowing up because I was not part of that family, truthfully, and they couldn't take advantage of me for that time. Literally, I was supposed to be doing my cousin's girlfriend's job for her and not getting paid, and I was not a dumb young lady, and I was like, this is not okay. So I went on to a whole other cousin's house for the last week. The state had to find a place to put me until I got to college. And my last foster home didn't want me anymore. So after I turned 18, they were like, nope, we don't want her. So I just kind of went straight into the dormitory from that and just kind of winged life for a little while.
Did you like it, like going to college there?
I did. I liked it. It was good for social interaction.
Yeah, I bet.
When you're in foster care, you can't even go over to a friend's house unless their parents have been background checked. Nobody has a felony. If you plan on staying there for an extended amount of time, like overnight or something, they have to have posted on their fridge a fire escape plan. Yeah. And have one of those fire extinguishers in house and everything. It's just like so super much to deal with when you're 13, 16 years old and you just want to go over and hang out with your friends. So, and on top of that, just switching schools all the time, like you would think it makes you more sociable, but it kind of, I mean, at least in my case, it made me like feel more uncomfortable speaking to people because I'm like, I don't even know how long I'm going to know you. Yeah. Like, I'm always the new girl. I'm really good at being the quiet new girl.
Yeah. I would imagine like changing schools that frequently would make it hard to make friends and like keep lasting relationships with people.
In that year and a half, I finished out the year at the school I was at. And then for half of my senior year, I went to one school, and the other half of my senior year, I went to another school. Like, it was just that quick.
Were they all in the same area, or was it like all over the place?
I mean, they were all the same side of town, but like, I didn't drive. I wasn't allowed to go to any friend's house, so it didn't really matter. Like, I still couldn't see friends from the other schools. But I mean, like Milford, Kings Mills. Yeah. And then back to Milford.
So you felt like from your experience in foster care, like, I guess, what specifically about it made you want to start a nonprofit organization?
The lack of representation for the youth. Ever since foster care changed shortly after the Marcus Faisal case. Do you know about that?
It sounds familiar. I do like vaguely remember the name, but I don't really remember the case or anything.
I don't know I cannot remember the super details of it, but I believe the child was not only a foster youth, but a disabled foster youth. And he was taken in by some not so great foster parents, like ones that were just kind of in it for the check. And for a significant amount of check-ins that the caseworker tried to do, they were saying, oh, Marcus is sick, or oh, he's at a doctor's office, or oh, he had a event to go to or something. And so like nobody had eyes on him, and by the time they found this child, like he was dead, he was burned, I do remember that. Yeah, it was like awful. News, right? Yeah, everywhere. It was all over. At first they were looking for him. Yeah. Like they tried to say they lost their foster child.
And then they found the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. So ever since then, like the rules have gotten so strict, and it's in the idea of let's keep the kids more safe, but again, they're just not getting they're not getting a childhood. They're getting we're gonna lock you in a cage and make sure that you never get hurt or injured
that's how it felt like when you were.
Yeah, that's genuinely how it felt. So, like I said, I started out with the whole idea of just trash bags because you shouldn't feel like trash. Or not just trash, but like replacing the trash bags, with something that, I mean, if you go on vacation with your parents, you're getting your own little rolly
suitcase.
Yeah, a suitcase, something. Yeah. When you go to school, you get a nice backpack, like a new one every year, most cases. And I remember seeing other kids in foster care with like their backpacks falling apart and stuff because they use those for moving and for school, and no one's gonna buy you a new one the next year unless like they specifically get a stipend for a new backpack. Yeah. So I don't know. It was just seeing a bunch of, like I said, I was 16 and a half when I went in, and I came from a very aware mentality. Like I had to care for my younger siblings on top of like dealing with an abusive parental figure and stuff. So I had to have my eyes open at all times just to survive.
Your birth parents, or you're talking about your foster?
No, birth parents. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was in foster care.
Because your parents were not.
They were handling
you well.
Yes, exactly. They were kids too when they had me. Like that's my excuse for them.
Yeah, they were pretty young.
Yeah, I think my mom was like a month past 18 when I was born, and didn't have parental support herself. Yeah. And same on my dad's side. So it was just they were thrown to the wolves, and somebody caught wind of it, and eventually at 16 and a half I went into foster care. I think I would have turned out fine if not for it, but I was happy for some of the opportunities I got in there. And I was so happy to be able to just see an aspect that, like, I had never even heard of foster care before going into it. I mean, I was only 16, but I had never even heard of it, much less, like, what the kids had to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure it's eye-opening, and, you know, like, it's like you said, it's not something the majority of people ever experience, so
Absolutely not.
I'm sure it shifts your perspective on life.
Finally understood why people would, you know, without military parents were only coming and staying at school for 6 months. Oh, because your new family didn't want you to be there anymore. Okay, cool, heard. Now I get it. Like, and oh, not to mention, I got like therapeutic visits once I was in foster care, so I was able to start developing proper coping techniques.
Oh, like like therapy with like a therapist? Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. Well, and a couple therapeutic homes, like people who are more specialized foster parents. Yeah.
Okay, so did they have like a background in therapy, or is it that they were just more like equipped to be a foster parent?
They just take more classes to understand how to work with children with disabilities or mental health issues or trauma, which if you think about it, nearly every child in foster care has trauma. So personally, I think they should all be therapeutic homes, but it's fine.
It's probably, I would agree with that. I don't know firsthand, but yeah, I would imagine that.
I can't change the world. I can change the local foster youth.
Yeah, I mean, in a way.
In tiny ways.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's still, in a way, is changing the world, you know. It doesn't have to be like you're impacting, like, you know, millions of people or something, but...
Well, there's 400,000 foster youth in the United States at any given moment.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that an insane number to think about?
Yeah, that's a lot. So you, before you came here, you were working on a car.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
I mean, we could touch on it. I'm the Jane of all trades. I get pretty involved in a lot of different things. YouTubeversity, love that stuff. Can learn anything. Kind of foster youth kind of taught me to be foster care taught me to be self-sufficient. And as I said, like my prior abuse, like you have to be self-sufficient. So my car previous to this one was a $450 car. I bought it for that low.
Was that a steal or was it worth that?
It was so bad. Like, everyone who got in it called it the Deathmobile, but I kept the Deathmobile running for 3.5 years and made it to every job that I ever needed to.
You think that was the fair market value of the car when you bought it?
Honestly, I heard that 1,000 is supposed to be bare minimum. I could have scrapped that car for the same amount. Yeah. But I only had to do a $400 repair to get it on the road. So. Over
like the course of 3.5 years, or just to get it like up and running and like operational?
Just to get it up and running. Over the course of 3.5 years, including oil changes, though, it was only $2,500.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah. So I felt pretty good about that. But I just kind of get phone calls from people now, and they're just like, "Hey, I've got this problem. Do you know anything about it?" Yeah. I went to school for engineering, mechanical engineering, so I understand how things work. And then I'm like, YouTube and figure out which nuts and bolts come off, and. Yeah. Boom.
I wish I knew how to work on cars. I always have to take it to the mechanic because I just don't know what to do.
I'll invite you next time.
Okay.
I'm all about learning stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's got something to learn and something to teach.
Yeah, definitely. So did you learn how to work on cars from engineering school, or did you already kind of know how to before that?
I used to take them apart with my dad when he was in a good mindset. He would go out and kind of like tinker. He was like a scrap guy. Get like $450 cars and break them down to their nuts and bolts and sell them to different people who needed different things. So I kind of learned a little bit about things then. And then when I went into engineering, I understood how a combustion engine works. And I'm like, oh, okay, now it's all starting to piece together. And then I got that $450 car and had a bunch of problems and was like, well, I can't make it to what I need to do in life unless I do this, and I don't have the funds to do it otherwise. So I just sort of did it. I don't know. It's just about doing. I adapt. I adapt very well.
Are you still on good terms with your dad, or?
Yeah, actually, he's been through a lot of growth. And he saw my growth too. And I will say, when I started Carry On Drive was the exact moment that my dad said for the first time, "I'm so proud of you." I had taken a thing that he hated. He hated the fact that the state had taken me away and told him he was wrong. But I didn't take it with blame. Like, when I speak on it, I don't speak on like, oh, my life was so terrible and I got thrown into this. Like, no, I'm like, hey, there are situations where people will be in these like problems, and we just got to have a way to make it better. Like, I can't change anybody's past, but I can change the way that they see the future, like, type deal. And so my dad's taken a lot of inspiration from that.
That's awesome.
And from the fact that I pay all my own bills, and he's never had to do that in his life. So.
Yeah. What about your mother? Are you guys close, or?
Yeah, we're getting much closer too. There was a conversation had when I was about 17 and a half. She was telling me about how my dad had like hit a deer or something like that. And I was like, don't talk to me about that, man. He's evil. He probably hit it on purpose. Like, at the time I hated him. Like, and, she was like, now that's your dad. And I was like, Dad, or Mom, I don't even have respect for you. Like, you split your whole family up over this man that doesn't work or do anything or provide anything but like chaos. And from that moment on, my mom, I mean, she cried the whole way home, or the whole way to drop me off back at my foster home. But she put her foot down with my dad and said, listen, she wasn't wrong. She may only be a kid, but she wasn't wrong. Like, you've torn my family apart. You've got a year to get your GED, and then a year after that to get a job, which was an expansive amount of time, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
He did both in 1 year, though.
Okay.
So...
That's awesome.
He took it as a challenge, and he did it. And
Yeah.
he saw that, this little pipsqueak over there is the one suggesting this? Like, I got her.
Yeah.
So me and my dad, we are very close. Me and my mom, we are pretty close. And ultimately, though, I think we learn from one another. Like, I've never really been their child, per se. More like a friend or an acquaintance or something like that. You know what I mean?
So you lived with them up until you were 16, though, and then...
Yeah, and then I've popped back through. Like, my dad got sick when I was in college, and I came back home and tried to take care of him as best as I could. He's good now. He's healthy.
What was going on?
You know, I don't actually know the details of it. I respected his privacy, and I was there to help out with what I could help out with. We didn't have a super close relationship when it came to my attention. He didn't even want me to come back home and help out. It's just I saw that my mom was struggling with 2 jobs and trying to take care of him. And I was like, Mom, like, we need to learn to work as a team. Like, you know, like, I can help out a little bit.
So she was living with him still, I guess, and you were...
Oh, yeah, they still are. They're much happier now.
Oh, what?
They are much happier now.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they've stayed together forever. They have been together since they were like 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
High school sweethearts.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's impressive. I've only met a few people who have been together since, high school. Or actually, I have a friend whose brother married the girl that he dated in like 8th grade, I think, and they just stayed together forever. But
it's cute when it's not toxic.
Yeah, definitely. And it's rare too. I mean, I've only met maybe, or even like heard about a handful of people that do that, but...
That's one thing that that's something that I have had respect for my parents for the whole time, is like, when it comes down to like the nitty gritty and the bull snot and all that jazz, like they are literally like...
That was a nice cover up instead of
Hey, I was a Mormon for a little while. I got
Were you
this.
really?
Yeah, one of the foster families.
Okay. What was that like?
They weren't allowed to convert me.
Yeah.
But
like legally?
Yeah, legally. But they had my foster dad was the Mormon missionary leader or whatever.
Like like a priest equivalent, kind of like he.
No.
Or,
no. So they have, that would be, what do they call them? Gosh, I can't even remember the term. The bishop. That's kind of like the priest.
Okay.
But no. So Mormon mission leader is, most Mormon male youths will take a 2-year-long like mission trip. It's just where you go around and preach the word of God, and you don't work, and you don't date, and you don't even look at girls. Like, you're just dedicated to the Lord.
Yeah.
But
sounds fun.
Probably shouldn't have laughed at that, but you did too. I'm fine. I'm going to hell with you. It's fine. No.
I got a cross in here somewhere. So.
But yeah, he was the guy who, when missionaries came to our area, he kind of set them up and let them know where good places to eat are, and
so he's just
about like different converts or whatever. Like, hey, this person is in the middle of a conversion, and I know you just got here, and you'll probably only be here for like a month or 2, but let me get all their information set up, and to just kind of keep them on track. Like, yes, it's their mission, but they are adolescent boys. You know what I mean? So there will be times where, like, no matter how far they shove their nose into the Bible or the Book of Mormon, like, they're still gonna have discrepancies.
Be
and
human,
he was, yeah.
Make
And
mistakes, all that.
he was there to not forgive them, but to kind of guide them.
Yeah.
So with having the missionaries in my house all the time, like at least 2 or 3 times a week,
Yeah.
I just got to drill in them about stuff. I
Oh,
was
really?
like, yeah.
You're just like picking their brains about Mormonism a lot?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like, no, this doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know why you guys do this.
Yeah.
You've given away 2 years of your life for this. What are you doing? Like,
Did you like appreciate the religion at all, or was it more like this isn't something that I would want? Like, did you like their lifestyle or anything like that?
I had what I liked and I had what I didn't like. What ultimately got me converted was after asking for just months on end to these 2 missionaries stayed in the area for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they would chat with me regularly, and I grilled the fuck out of them. And eventually one of them just turned to me and said, "Listen, Sarah, you can ask me another 1,000 questions and I'm going to do my best to answer every last one of them. But when it comes down to it, you have to have faith. And I can't give you that. Like, I just can't. You're going to have to seek it. My best option for you is pray on it, meditate on it, think on it, whatever it is you feel that you need to do, and see if you make that step." At the time, I was definitely hurting in my life, and these are people that have showed me love and did have some pretty logical aspects. Like the whole vibe of Mormonism is no different from Christianity. It's literally just saying, why would Jesus only talk to this half of the world? They believe that he came over here when he rose from the dead or whatever, and came over and talked to the North and South America too.
Okay.
And basically, the documents that were written down were the Book of Mormon, but they were lost. I mean, this was a pretty native area at that time. You know, it wasn't as civilized as the other side of the world. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, mind you, this is still 0 BC, so like there is no colonial, but it's just not as well developed on what we see as properly developed. So their excuse for the reason why the Book of Mormon was not out at the same time as the New Testament is like, well, it got lost, you know, over here with the natives, and that's why when America was being founded, and it's like 1803, and Ohio just got founded, God reaches out and says, "Hey, go dig up your backyard, Joseph Smith, and you're going to find some tablets down there that tell you the whole story of everything he had to say on this side of the world." And that's all Book of Mormon is. It's just the New Testament with different names in it.
So do you consider yourself Mormon?
No.
Okay.
I consider myself very spiritual. I was a Mormon. I lived a considerable amount of time as one.
Because I heard you say you converted, right? Is what you said?
Yeah. So I got officially baptized.
Okay. But you're not like a practicing Mormon necessarily.
Yeah, not anymore. But I was officially baptized as a Catholic as a baby.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah, like, you know, we do things and then we undo them.
Yeah. Grow up a little and form your own opinions.
Yeah, that stuff happens. I was very, very frowned upon by the reason why I left that family was because I was under a lot of stress at a young age, and I had been an alcoholic at like 14. I had smoked cigarettes and weed since I was like 12. And then I went into foster care, and they're like, "Don't do this stuff, or we'll have to put you in like JDC or a group home or something, and you're a really bright girl, don't do it." So it was like, okay, I'm not going to do it. But like, eventually I started smoking like a cigarette a day at work. Like, I'm going to school, I'm working, I'm about to go to college, I'm going to be 18 in like 6 months. Like, I'm going to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
My Mormon foster parents found out, and they were like, "That was one of our rules." And I'm like, "I'm sorry." They're like,
they kick you off that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't want me living under their house or under their roof anymore.
Yeah.
Additionally, they were a little butthurt because they had helped me get all the paperwork and all the interviews taken care of so that I could go to BYU, Idaho. That's Brigham Young University. It's a Mormon school. There are 3 BYUs, the main ones in Provo, Utah. And then they got another one in Hawaii as well.
My friend Jake just moved to Utah. Shout out, Jake. And we had lunch, like, he just moved a couple weeks ago, but we had lunch like the day, I think the day of or the day before he moved. And he was just, a couple times too before that we were hanging out, and he was just explaining to me how Utah is like the Mormon capital of the world, or I guess Salt Lake City in particular.
kind of a story behind that too, and it ties in with polygamy, which is not actually allowed in current Latter-day Saints church, which is Mormonism. They call themselves the Church of the Latter-day Saints.
Yeah. Okay.
But you always hear like bad flack about it, like, oh my God, they have this like polygamy thing, like that's not
where they
okay.
have like multiple wives, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There was a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
So War of like 1812 happens. So it's like what was that, French and Mexican War, I think. It's right down there, whatever. But we were involved.
Mm-hmm.
Like the U.S. was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get more men down there, the U.S. government offered to the Mormon men who had just like 13 years prior to, or no, like 9 years prior to, had just founded their church.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like getting berated about it. Like, how dare you come up with another book and then claim to be a Christian? You know what I mean? So they were like getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. And the U.S. government offered, well, for anybody who goes and fights in this war, we'll give you some land out west.
Mm-hmm.
So all the Mormon men went down and fought the war. All the Mormon women and children started their pilgrimage out to the west. They settled in Utah. But when they got there, all of a sudden, half the men had died. Like, or more than.
Like
they had
from
died.
The war?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now you've got a bunch of women and children out there who, women can't own property. They can't take up their man's land. Now they're just going to starve and die because there's no resources. You know, all of population's way back that way.
Yeah.
So the prophet at the time, he said, God says, for now, to make sure that the women and children are taken care of, you can take on multiple wives, but they become your responsibility. Like, you can have them. It's not like have them, but basically it's your duty to make sure that these women are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So they started marrying up more people because it was not at the time frowned upon by the U.S. government. 2 generations into that, though, the Mormon prophet said, okay, no more of that. Like, this will just become like a kind of a misogynistic weird thing if you guys continue with this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like a part of the group like sectioned themselves off, and they're the weirdo Mormons that don't, that like the Mormon church does not condone. Yeah, they do not condone them. You are not supposed to marry multiple women now.
Okay. So that's just like an excuse. Basically.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Mormon, so I have multiple wives. But
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, there's like, I'm pretty sure that the guy who did the whole like Big Love, pretty sure
TV
he's,
show?
yeah, he calls himself Mormon, but the
Yeah.
Mormon church will not sanctify him, and he doesn't sanctify the Mormon church. They say that the people that split off, he calls them wrong, and like his sector calls them wrong. But if you look at the book, like, they're right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how right can you be when you're talking philosophy and religion?
Yeah, it's
like, but at the same time, based off of the words said in the text, you should not have multiple wives.
Yeah. Okay.
And they have a living prophet who's supposed to keep you updated on any changes. That was another really cool thing that got me interested in it, actually, was that they were like, why would God leave you alone in the end of times without somebody here to guide you? Obviously, he's going to have a living prophet. And then the way for the living prophet to become the living prophet, he doesn't get paid. Nobody gets paid. No clergyman, the bishop doesn't. Everybody holds a role. And everybody pays 20% or 10% of what they make into the church, but nobody gets paid. Everybody will pray, and they all come up with the same guy to be the prophet, the next prophet, when the old prophet dies.
Is it like a prophet for the whole religion, or is it like for that community?
No, it's for the whole religion.
Okay.
Yep. But each community will have different moments where like they all pray about their bishop. Like their bishop is like your preacher or whatever.
Do they all like pray is it kind of like they vote for who the prophet is?
Yeah, but it always comes out unanimous. And that's where they like say, well, it must be God's word.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? If we're all thinking the same thing. And it's kind of interesting, and it kind of makes me wonder how much of that they're keeping under wraps and stuff like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
so is it like the whole community, like all, because there's got to be a bunch of different pockets of like Mormonism around the country, right? Or is it like pretty in one area?
So they're all over. They are all over, but it's just such a well knit kind of thing. Like if you, it's kind of a newer religion, and they came up straight into discrimination. You know what I mean? So they immediately built fortitude and foundations and things like that. So it's a very well-oiled machine, to the extent of like how I even got started into this facet. When I was going to go to BYU, Idaho, I had to be interviewed by 3 different people of various different rankings of the church to make sure that my heart and intentions were pure and true, and that I was not going to come out there and shit all over Utah or Idaho. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, make sure I was going to wear the appropriate stuff and had the right ideas in mind, that I wasn't just doing this for a cheap to free education. The tithes that everybody pays in, every member of the church puts 10% of every dollar they make back into the church. It is only used to help take care of the missionaries while they're abroad for their 2 years, to build new temples, which is a whole nother cool aspect too. Fuck, I forgot how cool Mormonism was. And then for education. Yeah. So when I was going out there, I was going to have to pay $3,000 a year for my education, and that's it. Yeah, I'm $20,000 in debt for not getting a freaking degree here at UC.
For 2 years of school.
For 2 years of school,
yeah. $10,000 a year, I guess.
Yeah, mechanical engineering with a minor in 2 major languages is like.
Do you speak those languages?
Fluently, no.
But you can, like, somewhat.
Yeah, I could do it a little bit. And I guarantee of any of the 10 languages I've studied, because I studied several more on my own. Any of the 10 languages I've studied, if you drop me into that country and everyone's speaking it around me, I got it. 2 weeks, I will be fluent.
So at UC you studied Chinese and Arabic, you said?
Chinese, Arabic, and German, but German was not like a minor. It was just another one I was studying.
Is Mandarin the same thing as Chinese?
Yeah. There's Mandarin and Cantonese, but at most universities they're teaching you Mandarin. I had a professor though who naturally spoke Cantonese, like that was her native language. So she'd always throw in little fun facts about like, but this is how you would say it in Cantonese. Like, so that was kind of cool.
Are they pretty similar or?
From the little bit that I learned about Cantonese, yes, it seems pretty similar. And I think they're written the same way, but I don't really know too much about it. Yeah. It was hard enough as is. I mean, you're literally reading pictures. Like, that's how you read.
Is it because each symbol is basically a word, right?
It's in some cases it's multiple words, and it's really contextual. Like you have to know what you're reading to understand, and that's kind of the same with like pronunciation even of that word. There's 4 different vowel sounds for each vowel that we have. So you got like
in Chinese.
In Chinese, yeah. So you got o, and o. And put that in the middle of like 2 consonants and say it like a different way, and suddenly you're saying that sheep over there, that goat over there, and that girl. Like, you know what I mean? But if you mess it up, you just call that girl a goat. Like, so
it can go wrong. Quickly.
Very quickly. Most difficult language I've ever learned. Like,
I've like read into it a little. I've never learned it at all, but I've always been kind of curious about like Chinese language or Japanese. I love that culture. I love like their architecture and some of the culture that I'm familiar with. I'm obviously not an expert by any means, but
it's okay because most of the culture isn't an expert either.
Yeah.
When it comes to like real Chinese characters, in most cases you study your whole life to know those, and then most people that grow up in China, they learn simplified Chinese. For writing, and that's like when you see signs saying, you know, here, come eat food here or whatever. It's in simplified Chinese, so that they could make a keyboard, and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's super interesting.
Do you know how to write it at all?
Very little. I'm better at writing Arabic, but better at speaking Chinese.
Okay. Can I hear you speak some Chinese?
你好，请问你贵姓?
What does that mean?
All I asked you is what your family name is. Well, I said, hello, how are you? May I please, in the most uptight kind of way, like I just learned
formal.
Chinese. Yeah, that's the word for it. May I please know your family name? Because you shouldn't be talking to people with their first name unless you know them on a very personal basis.
Yeah, isn't it in Chinese that when you read someone's name in Chinese, it's their last name is first? Like, the equivalent of like an American last name, I guess, in Chinese. Is that right? And like that their family name is first, and then it's like their individual name.
I feel like you're right, but like I said, it's been a long time since I wrote it down, and I don't really like.
I think
don't really
that's the
talk to
case,
people
but-
with their first and last name. When I'm
Yeah.
talking to people, in most cases, I am saying their first name.
Yeah.
I just pulled up that stupid Duolingo bird.
What is it?
Duolingo. It's just a language program.
Oh,
but
it, like,
this
translates
bird, well, it's supposed to teach you the language.
Okay.
The Duolingo bird teaches you the language. Don't ever sign up for it. That bird is the most annoying thing in your life. Like, because it'll have you set goals on how often you want to do your study.
Mhm.
And if you aren't there at the time you said you were going to be there, that bird is popping up in your email, on your phone screen, like through text message, everything. Hello, you're missing your appointment. Hello. And it's not even like you're meeting anybody. Like, this is literally just an app with already like predetermined questions in there.
Yeah.
Like, but
Hounding you to do it.
yeah. They should have done a hound, actually.
Yeah, that would
I think
be
that would have been way
more
better.
appropriate.
I'm writing a letter.
So do you speak a little bit of Arabic?
Arabic, I was so bad at.
Mhm.
But I was VP of the Arabic club.
Nice.
They just asked me on my first day.
What'd you guys do for the club?
We would get together, so they'd have these big like international days on campus, and I would go. Since I was the VP, I would have to go and be the representative of all of the Arabic culture. I made baklava a lot. That's how my teacher said it, at least. I've always said it baklava, but I'm not Jordanian or Arabic or anything like that, so I don't really know.
And then there's have you ever heard of a balaclava?
Baklava?
Well, baklava is a food, right?
Yeah.
And then a balaclava.
Oh, balaclava, no.
I think it's like what you wear when you go like snowboarding or skiing. It's like a face covering that like covers part of your face.
I don't know shit about that. I need to learn how to ski before I go to New Zealand. I've got a job there if I learn.
Yeah, I just started learning how to snowboard, but I went out to Colorado last year. I went out once the year before that too, and then once before that I went in like high school one time and a couple times prior to the first time I went to Colorado. But anyway, the last year I went, I got super injured. Actually had surgery like a couple months ago because of it. It was gnarly.
Where?
So be careful.
I mean, what did you mess up on you?
My shoulder, this shoulder here. Yeah.
You been to physical therapy and all that?
Yeah.
You got all your oomph back? You can get back to fixing the house?
I still got till like July, I think, to do physical. It's like a 6-month recovery process.
I skipped that. I got a boxer fracture once from punching the floor and yelling shoe goblins, and we're not getting into that today.
I didn't know about that.
But I never went to physical therapy afterwards.
Yeah.
No, that's too much of an insight into my mental health.
I've had to do physical therapy a few times, but in the past I wasn't really like that adamant about like doing it consistently, and it didn't seem to be like that important or helpful, although I could be wrong. But with this injury, it's like by far the most serious injury I've ever had, so I've been taking it seriously.
I still wish I would have gone to it, because my wrist pops every time I twist it. It's not quite as strong as the other side or anything. I mean, it wasn't the wrist that got broken, but it was this bone like coming right up from the wrist.
Yeah.
This finger bone got split.
The beginning of last year, I think it was. I also broke this hand skateboarding, like down the street from here. I was like riding down a hill to a friend bought a house close by. And I used to skateboard all the time, so like the hill is not something that I couldn't have done at one point, like easily, but I'm super rusty and I don't really skate anymore.
It's like me every time I bring up a language, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
do this. Now you put me on the spot. I don't know how to do this anymore. I'm about to break myself.
Yeah, so I don't know. I miss skateboarding and I love snowboarding too, but I'm like, I'm getting like too old to freaking do that stuff, especially how infrequently I do it. It's so easy to get hurt.
Well, I wonder, do you do like yoga or anything like that? Like, it help with your balance? As an adult, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually was going. There were some free yoga classes at Burnett Woods by UC that I was going to, which it was pretty cool. But that stopped like out over the winter, and I haven't really done it since then. I used to stretch like relatively often, but YouTubeversity. Yeah,
just get on YouTube. They've got daily yoga things that you can do.
I definitely would like to do yoga more. There's actually like a yoga festival like next month or something that some friends of mine are going to that I was thinking about going to, but I don't know yet. I'm still considering it.
I don't like paying for stuff.
Exactly. I'm too cheap.
Like I really badly want to get back into like, I like, don't tell my mom, but like I boxed when I was kid, just
Mhm.
like under the radar, but I could get away with it. Like if I got a bruise, I'd be like, Dad did it. Like, it's fine. And then they just shut up. They'd be like, we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
But like I used to box back then, and I loved that physical activity and that
Boxing's
physical
awesome.
expression of like releasing.
It's like an art form for exercising.
Yeah, and,
I
and
got
it
into
released a
boxing
lot of
for a little bit,
energy for me.
Mhm.
I had a lot of negative pent up energy that like just needed a way to come out without me breaking someone's nose that didn't deserve it or something, you know?
Yeah.
Now I really want
Not
to
the
get
best
into
option.
no, now I can get an assault charge. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, like, when I was, like, towards the end of college, I was coming out of a relationship that, like, I felt super messed up about, and I had a lot of, like, emotional, like, inner turmoil, and just wasn't in a good mental place. And it was around that time I backyard boxed someone, like, twice. It was only, like, a round, so it wasn't anything, like, serious, but and then I started to get like super into boxing after that when I got home. Like not necessarily like doing bouts or whatever, but
Right.
like just doing like the training kind of stuff for it. It was
Yeah.
such a good relief. Like I loved it so much. Like
I sparred with a lot of the local amateurs, but like I wasn't even really in fights. Like I just needed the time with the bag. And then my dad got a bag for down in the basement, and like he'd tell me all the time, like he'd come down screaming at me because I had the music turned up too loud, and I'm just going
hard.
ham on this thing, like,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You're shaking the rafters, my floor's moving," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Get a better mount."
Yeah, boxing's so fun. It's such a good exercise, and it's like such a good stress reliever. That like when I got injured, I literally like couldn't exercise or do hardly anything for like at least 2 months straight, and it was like the worst. But yeah, I've been missing just doing stuff like that where like it's a good release. It's hard to
Well, you're
find.
staying fit at least.
Yeah, I mean, I've been
Right.
eating pretty good, and like, I mean, I haven't really been exercising very much in the past like 3 months, but a couple weeks ago at physical therapy, they gave me the okay to like go to the gym, and I can't like lift really yet, but I could do like lower body workouts or like the recumbent bike or whatever, or the Stairmaster. So been planning on getting back just to do that, but I miss like jogging and
No, I just get
I miss all that
just
stuff.
planning on it.
Yeah. I'm like chomping at the bit to like get active again. I want to get a bike and just be more active.
I got a buddy who says that he'll teach me jujitsu. I don't know anything about groundwork.
I started going to Club MMA down the street from here, like before I got hurt. I went like maybe a year or two ago for like 3 months or something, 3 or 4
Are
months.
their rates decent? Like I said, I don't like paying for things.
I mean, it's kind of expensive, but I've done the math, and I'm like, it's a good deal, because if you use it often, like you can go, I think once a week for like an actual group class. I think it might be even twice a week, and then there's also like a Saturday. I think it's a Saturday class that's like an open mat class, so anybody could go and you can just practice whatever you want.
like sparring with others?
Pretty
or-
much. I mean, yeah, you're like rolling around with people, and yeah, it's basically sparring. But some of it you could do drills and stuff if you wanted, or you could just go there and they have like bags that you can hit and you know, jump rope or whatever you want to do. But yeah, I mean, if you use it often, then it's totally worth the money. But it is kind of expensive. It was like, I think it's like $89 a month, so it's a little pricey. That's
I
why.
have to get my second job before I do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've like gone there and then canceled and like gone back and forth a few times because I was working on the house and it was just expensive to like try to keep up with all the home improvement payments, and
Yeah.
it was just too much. But
I got two
Yeah.
people that are willing to teach me jujitsu for free, but I'm not sure of what their motivations are.
yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I'd love to roll around with a 6 foot tall female as well.
It's a lot of fun though. I really love it. Like, I mean, I've gone a couple times and gotten like injured, and so like that was one of the reasons I quit, was because I was like sparring, I guess you could call it, with this one guy that was like you do drills where like you're on your back and they're on top, and you know, like you pound the rock basically, and then you start like your goal on the bottom is to reverse it and get on the top, or submit them from the bottom if you can, and then vice versa on the top you just want to keep them beneath you or submit them. But anyway, this guy, like, and I was like brand new, I didn't even know how to submit anybody, so I'd be like doing pretty well, like I'd feel like I had like leverage over somebody or the upper hand in certain scenarios, but I even would say it sometimes, like while I'm rolling with people, like I don't know what to do. Like I'm just like, I don't know how to
What's my next
submit any-
step? Can you tell me?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, okay, I feel like I could win this, but I haven't like gotten that far to like learn it. But he was like on top of me, and he was like pressing super hard on the like my rib cage, and it was really uncomfortable and actually like hurt, and it was like he wasn't even doing anything. So I was just like, what are we doing right now? And I mean, in hindsight, I should have tried to like bump him off or like tried some things, but. Anyway, I think he like hurt one of my ribs because that took forever to heal, and then I eventually like joined back again, and I learned like more about submissions and stuff. But I'm not by any means that experienced. But I love
So
it.
you're not offering me lessons for free then?
I mean, I could probably teach you a few things, but like I don't. Yeah, I'm not that experienced at all. I would love. I've been missing it. That's like one thing when I got injured. I'm asking my doctor and my physical therapist like. Can I still box? Can I still do jiu-jitsu? Can I like play tennis? Like, and you know, I mean, luckily with the injury was like super serious, but I can still do pretty much like anything I was doing beforehand. But I was pretty concerned for a while there because it was pretty bad. But thank God.
Served tables when this hand was wrapped up.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I did, and ran a drive-through at the same
Really?
time.
Serving table? Did you have to carry plates out on it and stuff?
I had to carry everything on this hand.
On the other hand?
And then would set it down on the table and be like, okay, now I'm gonna hold this here on the edge of the table and serve you.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, why are you even out here? And then I'm pretty sure that's against like OSHA.
Probably.
I'm like, it definitely is, but shut this restaurant down and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, in the meantime, I need to make money.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting when you hurt like a limb and you have to adapt to not being able to use it anymore. It's honestly kind of eye-opening. Like I literally couldn't even raise this arm to here for 2 months. Like it was wild.
I got really good at using my left hand for just about everything.
Yeah.
I now carry most of everything in the service industry with this left hand anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm a right-handed kind of gal.
Yeah.
So I just use the right hand for serving.
Yeah.
Out.
Can you do like the trays like all the way across your arm?
Well, when I worked at TGI Fridays and they had that endless abs, I could fit at least 6 of those right up my arm.
Nice. It's
Felt
impressive.
pretty. Yeah, they always wanted me to be the food runner instead of serve, and I'm like, nah, I'm gonna make my money tonight.
Yeah.
I'll run it if I'm back there, but no.
Yeah. I've never served, but I did busing for a little bit, and then I worked at like McDonald's.
I'm currently the lead of a busing team.
Really?
And I feel very confident in saying that.
I kind of liked it actually.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
And we get like paid very well for bussers where I'm at. So I'm like, I will do this. I barely have to interact with these people. I just have to ask them if I can move a plate or put a plate in front of them. I don't even got to talk to them otherwise. This is great.
One time though, I bussed at this country club, and so everybody's like kind of hoity-toity,
Yeah,
and
uppity.
and there was this table I was like serving. I mean, we had to always just be looking around to look for glasses of water that were low and go fill them up. And I remember this one guy, I was like filling up his water, and I totally spilt the whole glass on him on accident. And yeah, I was scared. I was like, oh God, this guy's going to be super mad.
My entire service industry career, I've been working in the service industry since like 16 years old. I've spilled 1 cup of soda. And it was right on a dude. Like, it was right on him. Oh, well, I started crying immediately, and he's just, like, trying to dry my face before drying him. And I'm just like, no!
Yeah, I was terrified that he was going to flip out, but he was super friendly about it. He's like, oh, it's fine.
I mean, if you can look at somebody with just that sheer terror on their face
then
and still be an asshole, like, you are the asshole.
Yeah, I feel like as long as you're terrified, that like, diffuses the situation.
Exactly.
If I was just like oh, I don't care.
Whoops.
Then they'd probably be like, with a different story. But
did you do that on purpose?
Maybe. But yeah, it was a good experience busing.
You ever want to get back into it? You can come work under me.
Okay. Probably. I got it.
You're probably pretty set. Yeah.
But I appreciate it. So you also play music.
Yeah. Sorta.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I write my own music, but I can't do a cover to save my life. Because I just don't actually know how to play guitar or anything that I'm playing. I just I'll sit alone in my bed when I'm feeling something, like I'm really feeling stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just ping, ping, ping until I find a sound, and I'm like, oh, I like that sound. And then I keep playing that sound, and then another sound. And then, back and forth until I find whatever I like to come next after that. But again, I don't have a clue of what the hell I'm doing. I'm just listening.
Yeah, like as far as theory goes or like chord structures and
I did just buy a keyboard and a book about musical theory.
Okay.
And I'm like kind of learning what scales are, but I have not been able to translate that to my guitar yet.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be helpful though. I mean, especially with piano, like piano I think is the best for translating to different instruments if you learn on piano and then try to apply it to others.
Yeah. It's well, I mean, it's kind of like the structure of what musical theory was like written around, or maybe the other way around. Maybe it was created in the form of musical theory. Either way, like the fact that literally everything across there is so evenly balanced is like genius.
Yes.
It's just genius.
Yeah, I started doing music theory studying a little bit, and it's definitely helped me like become a better guitarist. I'm not like an expert by any means, but definitely helps to like practice scales and just understand things
Other
better.
people like to hear my voice and like what I write about when I write lyrics and stuff. So that's really my only motivation behind it, is that they keep telling me, no, you can write music. And I'm like, I don't feel like I can write music. Like I am literally doing this off the cuff. Like, but I kind of want to stand up to like the challenge you've put before me. If you want me to give you good music, I'm gonna learn how to give you good music.
Yeah, why not go for it, you know? I remember when I first started playing guitar, I would do the same thing. I would just kind of like maybe learn a chord from somebody, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool chord, and I'd just get like obsessed with it, and then I'd try to like add another chord to it that I liked, or you know, even if it's a single note, like you're talking about, same difference.
Ross was the first person to hear my first ever song.
Really?
Yeah, we were just chatting about him earlier. So my ex-boyfriend, that's how I met for us, taught me like 2 guitar chords, and I played just those 2 chords over and over again on his guitar, and then he broke up with me like a week later. And I was like,
it was his guitar?
Yeah, and it was his guitar. So
one.
I'm like, you just taught me something new. And I was more upset about like not being able to play his guitar than about the fact that you just broken my heart after like day 1. Like, so day 3 of the breakup, I go and I buy a guitar off of like, I think I got on Craigslist and met up with some old man. He gave me like this warped ass guitar.
Yeah.
But I only spent like $40 on it. And he was gonna charge like $75, but he knew that it was pretty damaged. But he saw like just my passion. Like I was just like, I almost cried like when I saw the guitar, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have my own guitar. I'm gonna learn everything. I'm gonna be the best. Like, and he's like, oh wow, yeah, no, you really need this. Here, just $40,
take it.
please.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, that's
the guitar you play?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never owned another one.
Yeah.
I probably should, because it's been warped this whole
That's
time.
awesome.
Like,
I remember I bought it was for my ex-girlfriend in college, but we found this guitar at a pawn shop that was like down the street from my apartment, and she was like interested in finding a guitar, and I was like, I think I used to go to that pawn shop every so often. I think that's how I found it, was just randomly, but anyway, she bought it for like super cheap, so they're out there. It's a pretty good guitar too.
And I mean, the bridge still hasn't ripped off, so it's fine. It's a little lifted.
Yeah.
I've had a few repairs done to it, like raising the nut on the end or whatever, trying to make it work. Yeah. Changing all that. Well, I can't actually. So, the action is just the
Just
level
like the
of it
height
above,
of the
right?
strings above
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because you can't bend the neck on this one. It doesn't have one of those things where you can like adjust the neck.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
My ex was also a guitar tech, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but like I've seen it happen enough times.
Yeah.
But I got this guitar, right? And I knew 2 chords. And then I just put all of my heart and soul and passion into this freaking song, right? I thought it sounded like shit, but I was like, but this is the coolest thing I've ever created, so that's pretty cool. Ross and James and them asked me to come hang out. I come up and hang out. I'm feeling a little awkward because I'm like, well, you guys are my ex-boyfriend's friends, and I feel like I'm kind of getting put on the spot. And they're like, no, dude, screw it. Like, come share it. Come spend some time. Like, we know you're probably gonna like smoke with us or something. Like, come hang out. Like, so I show up and I'm like, hey, can I show you like a sorta song? And they're like, a sorta song. And so I start playing it, and for Ross's mouth, he was like, how long have you been playing guitar for? That was like really good. And it was like, a week. He was like, what? I'm like, yeah, David taught me like 2 chords. And he's like, those chords aren't even in it. And I'm like, I know, I just kind of made up chords. And then like one of the other friends is like, no, that's a C add 9. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but cool. Like, and then they put me up on stage at the jam spot that's where I met up with them. So they put me on the stage and they mic'd me up and they were like, just so you can hear yourself over the mic, so you can hear yourself, like, because I know you've never been on one. I'm like, okay, fine. I got to play it again. And it was a freaking setup. Like, after they heard
tricked you into performing and recording it?
No, they didn't record it. No,
Oh.
they literally, so David was never meant to be there. The ex-boyfriend was never meant to be there. But after they heard the song, they were just like, oh, he needs to hear this.
Yeah.
So while they're setting up, they're taking their sweet time setting up because he's coming down the road.
Oh, okay.
I get like one verse into it and he comes walking in the back door and I'm just like, get more passionate about it. Like, this is my breakup song. Like, hop down off the stage and he's just like, wow, that was really cool. And I'm like, that was about you. And he's like, but it was still really cool. Like,
it was like, you wrote lyrics for it, I guess, like lyrically it was about him. And it was kind of like.
I mean, it wasn't even specifically about him. He was my first and only relationship I had ever had, and still to this date, first and only. I don't really get into relationships. I got too many problems to deal with on my own.
Yeah.
Like, it's nobody else's burden. I don't want that for them.
Yeah.
But he...
Plus, then you gotta maybe deal with their problems too. So.
I deal with everybody's problems,
Yeah.
okay? I will go out. I will just show up and work on your freaking car. I will bring you bags if you have trash bags. Like... I do it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we kind of got back together after that, actually, funny enough. But the lyrics were just basically about, it was about when a relationship is coming to the end. And the main chorus is basically, I'll turn my head, you won't see my pain, and I'll do my best to remain, basically about like, you'll see the flaws as it starts to crumble, but you try to make excuses. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. I'll turn my head. It's fine. And then the next verse is, he'll turn his head because now I've started to wander, because my head was looking away. So I looked at something else. I'm starting to wander. He'll turn his head. And then at the end, it's about, like, I did my best to remain. But the name of the song is Patterns. It opens with, patterns and squared off circles, fitting their toxicity into my holes. It's only a matter of time before the matter gets tight and explodes. And that's my feeling on relationships.
Yeah.
That's how he made me feel about it at the time.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds nice.
But yeah, while I'm trying to express all the reasons why I don't ever want to open this book again, he's like, but I had no idea you had that in you. Like, whoa, like you must have been really hurt. And we kind of got back together for a short while after that. It still definitely was not where either one of us needed to be. He doesn't get the full blame. But, like, it wasn't where either one of us needed to be. Yeah. But it's cool. It's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, it was a good story, definitely. So, did you record your performance video for us? Like, how long after that did you record with him?
Oh, like, the thing with him, that was last year. But the first song I ever wrote was, like, 4 or 5 years ago.
When you did, like, that, had that experience or whatever? Yeah. Yeah.
That's just how long I've known for us.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's what he actually brought up in the interview that'll probably never be seen by anybody. He was like, I remember I was the first person to hear your song, and, like, you always say you're not a musician, but I'm going to tell you, you're a musician. I'm like, I'm not.
I do like your voice a lot.
Thank you.
It's charming.
That's me. This face is so animated, there's, like, no way to get past it. But the vocals, funny enough, my dad, I think I told you earlier before this stuff started happening, but I told you that my dad had, like, complimented the fact that I put myself out there for that Jam Spot performance. And he was like, wow, you really put yourself out there? Like, are you going to pursue this? Are you going to, like, try and become a singer professionally or whatever? And I was like, did you just ask me that? Because my dad used to tell me, like, I remember at, like, 13 years old, mind you, I had my ear right up against the speaker and was probably screaming tone deaf as can be, like, you know what I mean? Like, but he would tell me all the time, like, shut up, you sound horrible, stop doing that. And I'd be like, no, my grandma says I'm gonna be a singer one day, I'm gonna be a singer. And he's like, do not waste your time. Like, that was what I was always told. And so when he asked me if I was gonna pursue something, and then I'm like, that's, like, the biggest compliment coming from you. Like, but no, probably not.
So it's not like your drive right now, you just kind of do it because you like to?
I just really like to. I mean, my dad used to make up songs all the time when he would get frustrated. It was, like, one way of, like, getting the frustration out without having to be physical about it. And we all kind of developed that habit And I think I took mine like one step further. It's like any emotion that just feels just a little bit too overwhelming. If I just put it down in like writing or song and I just hit that high note or like really press it out like with a loud note or something, like it's out of me. It's out of me now.
It's a relief.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where I've played out and like really put myself out there, and it's like you feel vulnerable, but it's such a good way to express yourself. Like I remember particularly one time I was living in California for a little bit, and I tried like busking, you know, like where you street perform.
Yeah.
And like I had a friend come over, and he didn't really play music, but he had bought himself a harmonica, and he was like super into harmonica. But we were like playing together outside, and I just decided to like really go for it, and it was like it was like one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life. Like easily.
One of my favorite performances I ever did, I don't even remember what bar I was at, but it was the first and only time I went there. But I was meeting up with some friends, and I just happened to have my guitar on me, and I was like, hey guys, wrote a new song, you want to hear it or whatever? And we're sitting, like, you had to go through the whole bar, get to the back patio, and then I was at the furthest corner of the back patio. That was where they were sitting, in this little corner. And I had my back to the rest of the patio, and I was just sitting up on the table playing for them because they've always supported my music. And so like I felt comfortable with them, and I just started playing. And I get to the end of my song, and I hear a full-blown round of applause.
Really?
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I turn around, and the whole bar has come outside and is standing on the patio behind me, and all listen to it. Some guy like brings me a $20 bill, like drinks are on me tonight. Like some other guys like, when's your next performance and all this stuff. And I'm just like, guys, I was just out here doing my thing. You weren't meant to hear it. And they're like, well, do your thing more. Like,
that's awesome. You want to busk sometime?
God, that's terrifying. It's
so
it.
fun.
Oh,
I love it.
But
It is
here's
kind
the
of
thing
scary,
too, is I don't know how to play. Like I
Well,
can
if you
play
could
my
sing.
songs.
Yeah, or we could
I
play
could
your
sing.
songs. Yeah,
I could sing.
You could do vocals, or we could play your songs. But yeah, I love busking. I have a friend locally. There's this program called the Cincinnati Music Accelerator, I think, and you can like apply to it, and they have a schedule. And if they accept you into the program, then they schedule you out into different locations at different times to go busk places. It's pretty cool. And I mean, I think they pay you like $20 an hour, and then on top of that, like you get tips.
Yeah.
So I wasn't part of the program, but he was, and we were in a band together for a while. And so like I'd already busked a few times in California, and just
Do you need a permit around here to do it?
well,
is that why they sign you up? Or?
Yeah, I guess with that program, like the program has the legal rights to do that. But so like if you go out as one of their people, then you can. But we'd actually gone out a couple times, like just to do it. And I mean, every time I've done it, other than with him, it was just like, let's just go do this, and just fun. And sometimes a cop might make you leave or something. But
yeah, I had a fountain I would go to sometimes and play, but I liked it there because the fountain, like you couldn't hear me. In my head, I felt like nobody can hear me. Like it was just a place to practice out loud.
Yeah.
Or outdoors
outside.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so for me it was that. But I would, as soon as people would hit that exact block, then they'd look over like, "Whoa, you're playing," and I'm like, "Yeah, my guitar case is not out. Don't look at me."
That's how I think sometimes too. That's why it's hard for me to play in front of people, because I get like that too. I get super shy and like self-conscious, but it's good to, like we said, put yourself out there.
You gotta just keep doing it. You gotta keep pushing yourself.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about your freaking sleep schedule. You just push yourself. We are the most adaptive creatures to exist on this planet. All we have to do is push ourselves. Like.
Yeah, I need to get that sleep schedule right. That's for sure.
You want me to start texting you at bedtime, like.
Time for bed.
Start your wind down process.
Yeah,
you're already behind.
I need you to show me photo proof that you're in bed. Like,
please don't send pictures of you
in
bed.
Like, but yeah. So as far as like recording goes, what do you want to record that song?
What the original one?
Or
the first one ever?
Is there any like in mind that you want to do? Or?
Well, there's one that has spoken to a lot of people that I've played for them that I would like to record. I think it's called Tomorrow. It's just about finding a new love or whatever. And about even when you get into like altercations, even if it's not a new love, like you can always keep it new with just remembering that they were always meant to be your tomorrow. You know what I mean? So like wait patiently, make sure that they have all the nutrients that they need to grow, make sure you're fertilizing yourself, and just hold firm that regardless of what you're going through, there's still going to be tomorrow. That's all that a relationship in my head is a promise for tomorrow. And we sign a new contract tomorrow.
Like
for a promise day. For the next tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I like that one. And then I have a couple anti-suicide songs. So it'll be a choice between one of those three.
Okay.
I think I really like Picking the Stitches Out. That's what's called Stitches or Picking Stitches. I haven't decided which one, but really, really, really like that one. It's just hard for, I always feel like it needs an explanation, you know? So that's why I haven't recorded it yet, like in any way, shape, or form. Not even on my little laptop where I just sit in my bed and play.
Yeah.
Like I haven't even done it then because I feel like it needs like a whole opening thing. Like, oh well, the reason why I chose these things is because these are what's important to me. Like, and it's really just it's about how depression takes the things that you love the most, and just turns them into like scary, terrifying, can't commit kind of things. Like I like to sit next to the river. And that's like a safe spot for me. But when I'm in the depths of depression, I sit next to the river and I see 1,000 copies of my dead body all floating, all with stale stares. Like it's no longer serene. It just destroyed it.
Just like this cloud over you where it's just like really a perspective thing where like you don't have to look at it that way, but you feel like stuck looking at it like in that way or something.
And then the chorus is about picking the stitches out. It's basically like There's been a way that you, like in the past, there's been a way, I can't even remember the specific lyrics unless I've seen this whole song from the beginning, but it's about like, there are ways that have worked in the past, but they're not working now. And that's okay, you just gotta accept it and pick the stitches out of this little patch of hell, and it's just as well. Like if you can just stay focused on, again, kind of the same idea of tomorrow, like stay focused on the fact that have a commitment with yourself, you're gonna make it till tomorrow, pick a couple stitches out, and move on to the next day, and then that day pick a few more out, and eventually the patch of hell is gone. You may have scars, like that's always going to sit with you, but now you're stronger for it. Like
that's awesome. I have a customer of mine. He has a podcast for like mental health awareness, so I don't know if you're interested, but you'd probably be a good guest for him to talk to if you would want to.
Dude, I'd freaking love that. Okay. I'm like a huge mental health advocate, and by that I mean I guess an awareness advocate. Like I want for it to be normal conversation. I don't want for it to make people uncomfortable. Like I've made people uncomfortable before just talking about my own mental health. But I don't ever want to feel like I have to hold it all inside or I can't talk about it or whatever. It's super
important to talk about those kind of things if you need to.
Yeah, I did it forever, just holding it all inside. My dad even once told me, he's like, you got the same kind of brain as me and your grandma. He doesn't believe in mental illness, but we have the same brain. So I'm pretty sure that's what mental illness is, but that's okay, Dad.
That's what they say, I guess, right?
He's like, you got the same brain, and you gotta understand, you're gonna be alone forever, and no one's ever gonna understand you. And I'm like,
that's fucking harsh.
Sick. I'm gonna try and do exactly the opposite of what you just told me, because you look like a miserable person with that mindset.
That's not a healthy way to look at things.
I will accept that I may be alone forever. I will accept that maybe people won't understand me, but I refuse to just accept that that's all there is.
It's like all you'll ever possibly have. Yeah.
Do nothing, nothing happens. Do something, you increase your chances for success exponentially.
Yeah. Nothing's going to change if you don't change yourself or make changes.
Change I want to see in the world is people feeling more comfortable with themselves. I feel like if we look at all these problems all the time, like when you go to sit behind, when you're going to the polls or whatever, if you've studied all the little like side issues or whatever, if you're not just going for the main candidates, if you've studied the issues, like you literally look into them, you assess a problem and you find a solution, and that's what those issues are about. And we do that all the time as a society, and yet I feel like a lot of the rooted issues are right here. Like people don't go out and be violent unless they're starving in some way.
Yeah,
like,
hurt or something's wrong.
Yeah, you're missing something. You don't go out and try to take from others unless you're missing something.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what that something is as a specific person, but if you talk about it, maybe we can figure out what it is and we can fill that hole, and so you don't feel like you need to go out and take from others to fill your hole, you know? Maybe you're physically starving. Maybe you're just starving for attention. Maybe you're starving for the right chemistry in your brain.
Acknowledgement
Like,
or understanding.
yeah, anything at all.
Communication or whatever,
Like, but we got to talk about it to be able to find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's not enough focus on it. Every time I've gone to a mental health doctor's visit, I've felt like a guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is the most important organ in my body, and we are playing trial and error with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's talk about this. Like,
Complicated
can we
organ,
just
though.
talk about this for a little bit?
Yeah, if you're interested, I can reach out to him and let him know. He literally just called me, I think it was last night, or maybe it was the night before, but he was just explaining to me how he was like looking for guests, and so yeah. Anyway, I can put you in touch or whatever.
I'd be down. I mean, I have no like certifications or anything other than my certified bipolar disorder. But
I mean, honestly, that's plenty. I'm sure. Like just to have like something in that realm to talk about is, I'm sure, gonna be sufficient. It's not like you have to be certified or whatever.
You're gonna have to be careful though, because I might get right into philosophy.
That's fine.
From there.
I'm sure I'll be alright.
That's what saved me. Like, saved me. I'm no longer medicated daily because I learned how to feed my spiritual side.
How'd you learn that?
One documentary kind of just really sparked my growth, and it was during the very beginning of the pandemic. I worked in the service industry, so I was completely out of a job.
Don't fuck with cats.
No.
Just kidding. Have you seen that?
I did not.
That's crazy.
No, I saw it. Oh, I saw it there.
It's
I just
traumatic.
didn't click on it.
Yeah, I kind of regret watching it. It was
Okay.
It was actually really, really well made, but anyway.
Like, regret it as much as like the Tiger King or anything like that?
It's like Tiger King, but on steroids.
Oh,
Like it's
my
like Tiger
gosh.
King. It's honestly a really, really good documentary, but it's just the subject matter is like really heavy, so it's hard to watch. It's kind of like traumatizing in a way. To be honest.
Cool.
with
I
you.
need more trauma.
Yeah. But I mean, it's definitely like good in the sense of like it's an interesting story and it's well made or whatever. But
Well, I watched a 2-part documentary. It's The Art of Effortless Living and The Art of Effortless Action.
mm-hmm.
And it was basically just a documentary that encompassed all of Eastern philosophy, like not a specific derivation of Eastern philosophy, just the ideas of Eastern philosophy, but explained knowing that you are living in Western civilization and Western society.
Eastern philosophy would be what like
Buddhism, Hinduism, and
Okay.
things like that. Well, I think Hinduism is actually considered a religion, but Buddhism is only a philosophy.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it's funny.
And like Taoism.
I actually do therapy myself, and I was just talking to my therapist the other day about Buddhism, and because we were talking about like religion and stuff, and he mentioned, because I'd always thought of Buddhism as a religion, although like I like Buddhism because I always thought of myself before I didn't realize that it wasn't a religion, but I was just thinking like I appreciate some of their methods or their ways of thinking.
I used to think Buddha was like their version of Jesus, but he never claimed to
he's like
be
their idol.
anybody.
Yeah,
like
he's like nothing basically, kind of.
when he was passing away, there was a whole conversation where his followers were like weeping and like, what do we do when you're gone? Like, do we worship you? What do we do? And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! You were never meant to be following me.
Mm-hmm.
I followed my own path, and you all should be following your own path as well. I was here as an example of like, I know that the path that I followed took me to our destination. Like, I know that in my soul, that that's where we're supposed to end up, like enlightenment or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you want to take pointers from me, that's great. But like, you're not, like, the whole goal is to go into yourself. And I loved that about him. I was like, that's true leadership and true like
selflessness.
Yeah. Like
I like always think of it as, I mean, I didn't like study it that extensively or anything, but I've read a little bit about it, and my dad taught me some about it too. But I always think of it as just like clearing your mind and not really thinking about things too much. It's more just like existing in the moment and being present.
Presentness is like a huge part of it. It's also about like diving past this like when you open your eyes in the morning and you look outside and you see the traffic and stuff, like, yeah, it's going to be there, but like, that's not your existence. You know what I mean? Like, that's not your purpose. That's not what you need to be focused on. Like, you're going to see it, but it's about living in your present moment, not just even the present moment, like your present moment is what I've gathered from it. Okay. But I also study into Taoism and Confucianism, which are more or less the same thing. There's just one big defining issue, which you can look up several different arguments between Lao Tzu and Confucius, where they argue, and the point that they argue is charity. That's the difference between Taoism and Confucianism. Confucianism, they 100% advocate charity. If you've got it, give it. In Taoism, the idea is do not have positive or negative intents on anybody because you don't have control over them. And the second that you go to put any sort of intent on them, positive or negative, you now have controlled them.
Yeah, or you're attempting to, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's like
So
like
even
a
charity,
manipulative
it's
thing in a way, right?
kind of like the story of the man with the fish. Like, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for the rest of his life. So you can give a man a fish, but now you've hindered that person. Now that person may be looking for a handout instead of looking for a solution. Taoism, I don't think would work in today's society, but I think it's end goal for humans. And to get there, you have to go through Confucianism and Buddhism.
Which
and
one's
stuff.
Taoism? Taoism is this.
The no intent,
Okay.
zero intent on anything. That's the Lao Tzu or the Tao Te Ching, or Tao Te Ching, I think is how it's like a weird kind of, it's not a T like how we say it, it's like a Tao.
Yeah. Like Tao.
Yeah.
So you think that no intent is like the ultimate, like.
Ultimately, you shouldn't want to control another person.
Yeah.
It makes you tyrannical by nature.
But I mean, what if your intent is not to, like, couldn't you have intentions not to do that?
So it's not having an intent not to, it's having an understanding that you're just not going to. You know what I mean? Like, in order to have intent, there would have to be an action then behind it. But by taking no action, you have no intent.
Okay.
And therefore, it's like sitting there looking through the glass window and seeing somebody walk by who needs help, but not helping them, which sounds horrible in today's society. You know, it's like, you shouldn't do that. Like, you should go help that person. And it's like, if you are truthfully enjoying that person as a person, you should let that person figure it out for themselves. And when you look at them, you shouldn't even have pity for them. If anything, if you have any sort of a feeling towards them, you should be like, they're so close to overcoming their next struggle. Like, every time you see someone struggling, you should be like, oh my God, they're so close to reaching the next level of their experience in this life. But ultimately, I don't have control over that. It's not my life to experience. It's not my stuff to worry about. And I'm going to turn back away from the window and go explore myself further. Like I said, super selfish for today's day and age. Like, I don't ask people to, like, necessarily look into Taoism as a philosophy for them to live by. It's a philosophy for us to grow towards. And I mean, Lao Tzu had like a lot of really cool statements that like really, Lao Tzu and Confucius were alive at the same time, not in the same country, but they were like alive at the same time, preaching very similar things, but they kind of like built these two philosophies off of each other in addition. They just eventually came down to that point where like, that's where they didn't get along.
So
that's
like
it.
Almost everything aligned except for those
Everything
two things.
else, yeah. So it's not, neither one of them are bad philosophies to have, and they make sense depending on where we're at in our time period or whatever. And right now, there's just so many people that aren't even focused on themselves, much less able to comprehend not focusing on others. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, I don't know. But the documentary, you should check it out. It's
What's it called?
Art of Effortless Living or Art of Effortless Action. There's two of them.
Part 1 and 2.
Yep. Well, I mean, they don't call them part 1 and 2, but it'll show up right underneath of it when you watch it.
Netflix
it's on
or?
YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just know everybody I've showed it to has had like a different thing that they picked up from it. It's like, it's just structured in a way to where it's going to help you work through whatever issue you're dealing with. Like I have with bipolar disorder, I've been labeled as reactive, not proactive or anything like that, even though I'm a super organizer. I love to like plan ahead and stuff like that. But ultimately, I come off as reactive because I'll have like a brain chemistry change or a trigger or something like that, and then I react. Frustration can be one of the worst ones for me to deal with. So there was a quote in the middle of it. It's so straightforward. Like the documentaries are not like new information. They're just phrased in a way to make you truly understand why that information makes sense. And how to do it even if you have to work 40 hours a week, like even if you have all these projects, like how to still maintain the focus on what the philosophy is. But there was one thing where he said, you got to let the energy flow. And right before he had said that, he had said something else that just made me throw my hands up. And I was like, what do you mean? And then he's like, you got to let the energy flow. And like, I literally felt myself, you know, energy flowing in one hand and out the other. And like, boom, now it's no longer affecting me. It's out of me. It flowed right through. It also helped me knowing about.
So you had like a feeling that you were sort of stuck on.
Yeah.
Instead of like dwelling on it and letting it like fester inside of you, you're letting it flow. Like you're still experiencing it, but you're like accepting it and then letting it pass beyond you or behind you.
Things are in constant change. All of life is suffering. That's one of Buddha's first rules of life. Like, I forget what he calls them in specific, but he has like 4 main rules, and then there's like eight ways to get to where you want to be or whatever. But the 4 main rules are something like all life is suffering. The cure to suffering is, man, I got a really good book that I'll have to bring sometime for you to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
But basically, all life is suffering, and you can get past that. Like, not to the point where you're not suffering, but to where you have acceptance about the fact that you're going to wake up to the same. You may not love the life that you're in, but you can still wake up and be happy. Like, you can still do that. You can still work towards things that help you grow. It's meant to be hard. You don't grow without the hard parts. Like, you ever see a flower grow in high speed?
Yeah.
Those little videos, I love telling. I got a little friend, Bailey.
Time lapses. I used to shoot a lot of time. I've never shot a flower sprouting, but time lapses are cool.
Love a flower sprouting time lapse because I show my little friend Bailey this all the time. She struggles a lot with a lot of things, and I tell her all the time. I'm like, hey, you see that flower, and it just starts like twitching this way, that way, this way, that way, and it looks so painful, and it looks like hurt, and sometimes it looks like it's crying, sometimes it looks like it's screaming. It's just like it looks chaotic. But at the end, there's always a beautiful bloom, and it always ends up as perfect as any flower could be. You know what I mean? And that process along the way, you have to like remind yourself, like, I'm going to struggle right now, but happiness is not a destination. Sadness should not be either. These things will happen to you over and over again, but so long as you let them flow, don't hold on to sadness. Don't wonder why you're sad, or like, I mean, you can assess what triggers are and stuff like that, but ultimately there's going to be days where you just aren't the happiest that you've ever been. And you just have to accept it and start planning for the next day to be better. Like, that's normally what I do. When I feel like I cannot move, I will get up about halfway through the day and be like, but I'm going to move tomorrow. So what are some things that I would have liked to have seen today that would have made me more motivated or whatever? So I go and I set myself up for success for the next day, and then I lay my ass down for the rest of the night. Like, I used to have a really cool mantra called the good man shoes before I ever learned about Eastern philosophy, and I think that's what made it like recognized so much with me, or like it empowered me. But it was supposed to be a self-forgiveness thing for bipolar disorder. I said hurtful things to people. I do things that I wouldn't want to do, but like I did them, and I had to live with the repercussions. But ultimately, every day I was going to wake up and put on my good man shoes. Might get stuck in the mud, maybe quicksand sometimes. Like, my shit gets scuffed up. Like, it's not going to work out all the time. I can't be a good man all the time, but I can try. When it gets to that point where it's just the soles are about to wear right off my feet, I take them off. I go home, I repair them, I polish them up, and I set them next to my bed, and I don't got to put those on for the rest of the day. But tomorrow morning, I wake up and I put my good man shoes on. And I start that day out the right way. Like, that was just so much stacked on top of one another.
That was dope. We gotta soundbite that. Like a freaking montage of flower sprouting to it and stuff. That reminded me of when I started my company. Like, I started it with the name The Live Collection, and I wanted it to be about like living and making like your best life kind of thing. And the logo initially was like a seed in the ground with like one leaf sprouting out, and then ultimately I thought like it'd be cool to morph the logo as the company grew and as I developed, and make it eventually into like a tree to show the growth. But I was like working for a while with my uncle. He made like I don't know if he really does it that much anymore, but when he was younger, he made a lot of miniatures, like train tracks and stuff like that.
Cute.
And so I reached out to him about it because I wanted to make an intro for like my YouTube channel, and we were working on this like little miniature set where we were gonna plant a seed in it, and we were actually building like these rolling hills and like little trees and stuff like that. It was really turning out awesome. And then we were gonna make a movable sky background where it went from like day to night, and it was gonna kind of be, it was basically just gonna be a time lapse, and we were trying to figure out a way to get running water through because there's like a little creek, and then have like an aquarium, like fish tank filled with dirt, and then have like the seed in it, and then try to like get the seed to grow like straight up into the center. But anyway, it just reminded me of that because that was like the way you described that was kind of more or less like sort of defined how I was thinking of like that logo. So just reminded me of all
Get
that.
your little flower growing.
Yeah.
Wake up
Yeah,
every
that's
day,
cool.
keep trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So do you want to try to record, or do you want to try to reschedule for another time to do that?
I think we should probably reschedule on the recording.
It's bedtime soon, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I still want to pop out to my bubs,
Oh yeah, that's right.
but it's not terrible. I don't work until 10:30
I
tomorrow,
was
so
just
if I end
teasing
up
you.
sleeping in
Yeah,
just
no,
a little bit, I'll be fine.
No, I envy your going to bed early. I've been a night out for.
You want to know the most embarrassing part about me having to leave, or when I leave though? I broke my glasses very badly. I need them to drive. So I'm currently so glad you weren't here when I pulled it in the driveway. I currently have to take a string and tie it to one side of the glasses, wrap it around my head, and tie it to the other side. I'm missing both ears. I have new ones
so you got
ordered.
the spectacles, but you don't have any
Yep.
things that go over your
Yep.
ears.
Yep.
Oh man.
It's so bad.
I actually have
2 years in engineering, and that's what I can do.
Yeah, there you go. Paid off. I have like, I don't know if you a pair of my dad's glasses are in my car, so I don't know if you want to try them on. Maybe they work for you. I don't know.
I doubt
Maybe
it.
not.
I'm not like blind. Like I just at nighttime I definitely need to have them on. Like I spent most of the day riding around without them on, which is kind of illegal, but whatever. I wouldn't have hit anybody or died or anything. It was just like a little blurry.
Yeah, they probably.
I've got
wouldn't
them
even work for
ordered
you,
though. Like they'll be here in time. I just got to practice patience.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite words, practice. I like it when people say practice patience or practice empathy, but do not ever claim to be a patient person and do not ever claim to be a full empath.
Yeah.
Like, don't do these
That's
things.
dangerous.
Practice.
Yeah.
Just practice.
It's dangerous to be too empathic, but.
Man, I get a little overwhelmed when I see somebody talk about how empathetic and how much of an empath they are, and I'm just
when
like,
they're talking about themselves, yeah.
I'm
That's different.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can be empathetic and empathic. You can be these things, but it's not something you claim for yourself. It's like a psychopath. Like a psychopath will never say they're a psychopath. If you're saying you're a psychopath, you're not one.
Yeah.
You're somebody who wants attention. That was a bold statement to just say, but that's
There you go.
kind of real and kind of raw.
How do you write lyrics? Like, what's your process?
So I was a poet before I ever picked up a guitar. When I went into therapy and foster care, he actually told me that I had been doing amazing job through coping through poetry. Like how I was saying, I would take like when I sing, it's like it's taking the emotion straight out and like throwing it out there to the world, and it's no longer in me.
Mm-hmm.
I did that same thing with writing things down. So that's usually how it starts. It's like one phrase that just crosses my mind, like while I'm out driving. If I'm driving, I pull up my phone and I like record myself just saying that one phrase.
I've done that so many times.
And then when I get home, I like build off of that.
Yeah.
And then when I get a nice general structure and I have chosen one of those to be like the chorus, if there's going to be a chorus, because I do have a song that doesn't have a chorus, but once I figure that out, then I just pick up the guitar and start like playing a few notes.
So you might have
and
like
singing it out.
So something might just come to you, like here's a phrase or
All
whatever,
the time.
a couple sentences, and then you're like taking that and you might take it home and try to like write it out, potentially write more to it, and then like find a chord or a couple chords or a couple notes or whatever that you
It's like a little it's putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, and then you play like that, because this is something I can kind of relate to, but is that how you do it? Like you might have like a section of like a song, and then you just like play it over and over again without it like really expanding beyond that, and then you might try to like throw another sentence in there, just like impromptu, like here's something that just popped in my head, or it might not even be like a fully formed thought. Or
sometimes if I know I got a long drive ahead of me and one of those just crossed my mind, I just turn off the radio, turn off everything, and I just start like singing a song. And then if I hear like a big old chunk that I like, I'm like, ooh, let me see if I can try to start that over and record it and like see if I can remember it. If not, something better comes out normally. Like But yeah, no, it's usually in sections. Yeah. But as you can tell throughout most of our conversation, I'm a pretty metaphoric kind of gal. So like those thoughts cross my mind all the time. I'm always trying to think of a way to explain something. Like, do you know in like, I think it's German. I know it's one. There's several languages where there are like multiple different ways to say love, and each time that you say like each of those different variances, it means a different kind of love. Like you would say a different kind of love for the love of a child, and then you'd have like a parent to a child, or just a person to a child, or between to your parents. That's even separate as well. Or you've got romantic love, friendship love, love of you as just a person or whatever. And they have like all these different words that you can use for it. And in English, it's just love. So I'm like constantly trying to find a way to like, what if somebody's brain doesn't work the same way as mine does? How could I explain this thing, whatever it is, whether it's a physical thing or an emotion or whatever? How do I explain this to somebody that may not think the same way as me? And that's usually where the beginning phrase comes from. That starts me off on writing a song. It's like, I've come across a peculiarity in my life, whether it's just a weird street sign I just saw, and I'm like, man, I would have interpreted that a different way. I've got a song that's like halfway written about street signs, actually, like just about weird ones that I see, and about how like you wonder why street sign. The song started because I was wondering, how do they choose what street sign goes where? I mean, to a certain extent, it's the layout of stuff, but then do they always know that this is going to be a more sharp turn than what you would be used to? Do they always know that people are going to fly around this corner, even though it's the same like angle as the one just before it, but now we've got to put warning signs on this one, like because people always pick up speed there or something. You know what I mean? Like, was this sign here first, or was there a problem here first? Like,
there's probably some sort of rules for that, like
there's some, but
rules or whatever. I don't know what even organization would be behind that.
I think the civil engineers do it.
Really?
I think so. I'm not positive on that, but I think it would be. I think the people, like the study that you would do, like the specific study you would do before you became that position, would be civil engineering. I think civil engineering is kind of more like procedural.
You're like engineering society in a way or something like that, like as far as like the way roads work, or like.
Well, like they would, like the way that civil engineering was first described to me was like, okay, you got to fit X amount of computers into one room, and you got to do it the most, like just the best
space,
way. Yeah, maximize space. That's the civil engineers that do that.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that they also do all the roadways and stuff like that to maximize the space.
To make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that they would be the ones. I don't know that for facts, but that's always been my assumption, because I've made a lot of remarks about Northern Kentucky roads and just wanting to call all the civil engineers and say you're fired.
The roads around here are terrible.
This is awful. Why do I stop at every stop sign or every stoplight for like 5 blocks in a row? It turns green just for me to get there just in time for the next one to turn red. This makes no sense. Like,
it's definitely a design flaw.
I just, if you can explain it to me, I will accept it, and that's fine.
Yeah, if there's a good reason.
And why are all the potholes on one side of the road?
Yeah, and never.
But if you go over, then you get a ticket.
It's got to be a better way.
I just had to replace my axle because of Northern Kentucky roads. Like,
I bet. I know a couple people who've had to do that. Potholes around here are terrible.
Yeah, you put I want a receipt. Where's taxation with representation?
I actually knew, I knew a guy, I still know him, but there was a guy back when I was in high school. He was like, he partially owned a skate shop that we went to all the time. And he had like a super nice car with nice rims. And he
can't do that in this part of town.
Yeah, his rims got totally screwed up.
Yeah.
And he like sued the city and won actually because of that. So.
I should look into that, because I'm a Karen when it comes down to it. If I gotta be a Karen, I will Karen up on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, if it's worth it to you, I don't know what's all involved with that process, but I mean, yeah. Might be
the issue is it's just like taxes are so high in Kentucky. It's the Commonwealth. Where is it going to? Because the streets that I live on have homeless people everywhere, and craters on every freaking road, even the main thoroughfares. Yeah. Like, I mentioned this earlier on my Facebook. I don't know if you saw it, but I made a comment. I said, I'm about to like actually, it might have just been on like a comment on somebody's thing, but I said, I'm about to just start building tiny homes in all the craters and kill two birds with one stone. Now you cannot drive on that part of the road, and all the homeless have a home. Like, and I'll just take care of it, and then can I keep my tax money, because I'm also not getting anything. Like, I literally have applied to certain programs down there and have been declined, and I'm like, how? I'm a single income, like, I don't make much. Like, how can I not get approved for like food stamps?
Yeah.
How does that work? I don't have children. That's the issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple people who've like taken advantage of the loans that are being offered for the coronavirus and like everything that was going on. It was crazy, honestly, how much people were able to make from that.
Yeah. I was grateful.
No, it's. I mean,
for the money that I received.
I don't blame people for doing it. Like, but it's
I
just
didn't
like,
take.
man,
I didn't do loans. I took what they offered.
Yeah.
Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I was like right around the time that the lockdown started that I like broke my hand, so I wasn't like, I have to print for a living. Like, I print T-shirts and stuff.
Right.
And so like I couldn't do that with a broken hand. So I like applied at the time for unemployment, but I ended up just like not doing it, not following through or whatever. But
I accepted some, and I kind of got screwed like towards the end, because my job I was one of the first people that my job asked to come back, but they couldn't offer me full-time hours. But they offered me, like, the amount of hours that they needed me for put me $3 above qualifying for unemployment.
yeah.
But if I had been on unemployment, I would have made that $3, but plus another like $397, like an extra $400 each week. Like, I could have done that. Could have had that money, like, and sat at home on my ass. But I do like. I mean, I'm a pretty motivated person, so I liked being able to come back in, and it actually kind of worked out, because I could then set standards and things like that for the crew that was coming in after on the next tier and stuff. So now I kind of like, I don't run things, but things run the way that I would like them to.
Yeah.
Type
You're
deal.
like in charge of organizing it.
And I just got out of pandemic debt, and I did that without the supplemental stuff. So
Pandemic debt is like, what do you mean?
Oh, just the debt I accrued during the pandemic.
I thought that was like a thing. Like,
no, that's just me talking.
Just from like, I guess just from living expenses and stuff, or
yeah, I mean, when there were certain weeks where they weren't, like, even when they weren't doing the extra unemployment is designed to keep you below what you would make if you were working, so that you're more motivated to get back to work. But that didn't work for the pandemic. That's why they were giving that supplemental stuff, because there isn't, your motivation's there to get back to work, but there's no work for you to get back to.
Yeah.
So I took almost, I want to say like a minimum of a $600 cut to my biweekly paychecks by being on unemployment.
Yeah.
So, and I was still only kind of barely making ends meet. I mean, I finally reached a point that at least my tips, I could save some back, because like I was planning on going to New Zealand and stuff. So I was saving. I used my savings for New Zealand for the first half of the pandemic to get by with that lack of income. But the second half, like, there just wasn't anything I could do.
Yeah.
So I had a really cool landlord who, she was really cool because she knows how reliable I am. Like, prior to pandemic, my rent was paid 2 months in advance always.
Nice.
Like, I'm very, like, crazy like that. Like, I've been homeless before. I will never lose my home again. Like, point blank. It wasn't even my fault that I became homeless. It just happened, and I just will never be in that predicament. I will always have at least 2 months to figure something out, like, paid. So, like, she was very lenient. I kept calling, like, I'd call her every paycheck and be like, this is what I can give you. I'm sorry. I know I'm getting behind. And she's like, Sarah, I'm not stressed. Do you realize that most of my tenants are like 9 months behind on stuff? And I'm like, yeah, but how do you maintain if you're not getting paid? I understand we all have a job. We all need money. Like, I feel bad that I'm part of the problem. And she's like, you need to stop feeling bad, because you're like the most resolved, like, they're the most solution-oriented person in this problem. Like, you'll be fine. You'll work it out. I gave my whole last stimulus check to her to pay off the last of my debt. And she was like, I feel really bad that I'm taking this. And I'm like, no, that's literally what it's for.
It's a good feeling to like pay off debts and just be totally free of debt.
I've been on top of the world.
Yeah.
Other than student loans, like, I'm on top of the world right now. I mean, I've broken even. If I hadn't done that car repair earlier today, I'd have $20 to my name until next Friday. But now I've got $120. So just get out here and hustle, get your shit done.
Yeah.
Like, but even $20, I was $20 in the plus. I've been up to $2,400 in the negative. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that was an uncomfortable position for me.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, it sucks to owe money to anybody. It's the worst. Yeah, I try to avoid loans and stuff as much as I can.
As much as possible. I don't even have a credit card. I probably should do that, but I just don't.
That would be a good
just
idea.
don't.
I would support that notion. It's good.
I don't
to
ever
build.
really want to own anything though that I don't pay outright for.
Yeah, I get
I'm
that.
really good at saving, but when I get manic, that's when I would not want a credit card
Why? 'Cause
because
you're just like, I'm just
I will
gonna spend shit.
I'll validate it. You know what I mean? Like I will make it okay for me to go and get whatever. Well, you're manic and this will calm you down. And if you calm down, then you got less of a chance of fucking up your whole life. Like, so just go buy the thing. Like,
What is like I've been like I feel like my understanding of what being manic is, I don't fully understand like how to define that.
well, it's a pretty broad spectrum thing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's tough to understand it. I could tell you my experience with mania, but I've heard it told from several other people with my same diagnosis, bipolar disorder in general, borderline personality disorder. Most of the really big ones are very broad, and then you've got like levels to the shit.
Mm-hmm.
My mania, I am the type of bipolar that literally has two poles.
Mm-hmm.
I am severely depressed or have an exuberant amount of energy. During my mania time, in the past, it's gotten me into addiction and things like that. You know, I'm a yes man when I'm manic. I've got all the energy in the world. I could do anything. Sometimes I want to chill out, but I would need a medication to do that. So like, give me all your pills. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me it all. I'm gonna smoke all the weed. I'm gonna do all the things. Like, I'm gonna get so drunk and I'm still gonna be wired. Like,
Yeah.
so it's a destructive time for me, but depression can be that too. It can be destructive. You're self-deprecating now, like not with external things, but now I'm in my head like, oh, you suck. You're not doing this right, so don't even do it, like, and stuff like that. And what I've learned over time is proper coping techniques for myself. Now I use mania to fuel me, and I use depression to like keep things in perspective, to make sure I don't get the superhero complex or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When I'm manic, I started my my charity organization while manic.
Mm-hmm. Superhero complex would be just like you think you can do everything, or
yes,
yeah,
all the time.
Yeah,
I could do everything all the time, always.
like be like the best at it, or
yeah. Well, and not even always the best, but like I will keep going. I will lose sleep. I won't eat. I won't do anything until I get to be the best. Like, yeah, mine's in general, for me, mania is just high energy levels and depression is low energy levels. And then now I've learned how to use those things. But before I didn't.
Middle, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the medication they'll give you will put you right smack dab in the middle, but it'll put you so far in the middle that you don't even have a moment to like smile or feel sad. Like, like your childhood pet just died, but you're on that medicine. Okay. Like you just got proposed to and you're about to marry the love of your life, but you're on that medicine and you're like, okay.
You're
like it's
numb,
just
basically.
Yeah, it's a shitty. I don't like it, so I've tried a lot of therapeutic.
I've always avoided like, if you know, I've not to like put down people who take medication at all.
Absolutely not. If it's helping you, it's helping you, and that's what it's there for.
Right. Yeah, like, but I've always felt like if I feel out of whack, like I don't want to resort to medication. But again, it's not like to each their own, you know. But I just, for me, that's kind of how I think about it.
So I've developed a pretty good relationship with my doctors to the extent of like, I have an emergency medication that I keep on me at all times. Mm-hmm. It is for if I get into just too high on either end of the spectrum, it's it'll bring me right back to the middle. But it's got a super short half-life, so if I don't want to take it every day, I don't have to.
Yeah.
In 6 hours, it's fully out of my system. 4 hours, I don't even feel its effects. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very cool. They did not support me for a very long time in doing this. They were like, no, originally I was severe bipolar is what my diagnosis was. They're like, you need this. You're not going to be able to function in society. In fact, even on this stuff, you're still probably going to have to accept government assistance and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not committing to that. Like, I'm not going to say that that is all that I can be. Like,
Right.
so I kept trying. I've had a lot of pitfalls and stuff. And I have a great support group who will let me know when I'm hitting those pitfalls and be like, hey, you need to get your ass into the doctor, like, and talk to them. Like, maybe you just need some medicine for a little while. And I'll do that. Like, if that's what it takes to get me back kind of in a reliable range for myself, then like, I'll do that. And some people, they do need that all the time to get in a reliable range. But I think I touched on it earlier too, that I just don't feel that we have enough knowledge. We're not talking about it enough. We're not trying to understand it enough to really, you're still a guinea pig. Until they can tell me this medicine will work, and they don't just say, yeah, I think it might, I'm probably not going to take like heavy medicine until they tell me it will work. Like,
definitely. I always like the idea of just like feeling like I don't need to add something to my body that isn't like naturally occurring within myself. But I know like they, you know, there's science on people who have deficiencies in certain like chemical imbalances and things like that. So I'm not a scientist. I don't want to act like I have all the answers to all that, but that's kind of how it proceeds.
What I could say as a patient is that they still haven't been able to tell me like a number to match my, like, if I have a certain amount of chemicals in there or I'm missing a certain amount of chemicals, shouldn't there be a number amount for that amount of chemicals? And that being said, once we figure that number amount out, that's the number of medicine that I take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it sounds like it would be that simple.
I mean,
I feel like it's
I know
probably
it
so
flexes and flows
yeah.
all the time, but we're not taking the time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to watch my brain every day for a year, no medication, you mean to tell me, as a doctor that's specifically in that field, if you watch that shit play out the whole time, watch the chemical levels and stuff, yeah, and then give me medication, I would jump right on that. Like, I would be like, hell yeah, you've done your research on me as a person, and I am down. But just because it worked on 40% of one group, I'm very different.
Yeah, like, I'm super reluctant about all that stuff. But yeah, teach their own, you know. No,
absolutely. I'm not here to have intent on anyone else.
No, for sure. Cool. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, it was nice to get to know you.
Yeah, you too. Nice to meet you. Yeah, for those watching, this is the first time we've ever met. So.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming over. I guess we'll have to like reschedule to actually record and like work on some music. But
I'm free again early next week, but we'll chat about it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be looking forward to it.
This is so much closer than what I thought too.
Really?
So like, yeah, I grew up down the hill.
Did you?
Yeah.
Where, on Harrison or?
Well, so I grew up like right up off Queen City, but not up Harrison side. Well, I passed the street that went right behind my house, but
Queen City's that way, I think.
So I came.
So bad with directions.
No,
so
I came from that away.
Okay.
Yeah, Queen City's that away, far enough down Harrison. Yeah. It's that away, but so right at the bottom of the Harrison, where it comes up off of Queen City, you came across the viaduct and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You come up and like that first intersection, if you were to turn right and then turn right again, that was the street I grew up on.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
Okay.
So I like drove past and I was like, oh wow, that's my neighborhood. And then I looked down and it's like 4 more miles till your destination. I'm like, wow. I'm like right here.
Short trip. Is that the area where they just like did all that work? Like there was that park that was there, the basketball courts and like the playground, and there was like a little water thing too, I think.
Yeah, they used to have there used to be a lot of homes there too.
Yeah.
and
they got rid of a bunch of stuff.
And like businesses that were locally owned. There was a lot of stuff there, but it's it's supposed to be a development to help the community.
Yeah. But
I just want to know, I don't know personally, so maybe I'm just throwing conjectures out here. I do want to know what happened to all the people that were living there, because that was my community.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't drive over there that often anymore.
Now, mind you, there were a lot of crackheads down there.
I was gonna say, I feel like that area, like, definitely, like, wouldn't hurt to have like money put into it to improve the area, but that's not to say that I advocate necessarily for like
everyone to be pushed out.
Yeah, exactly. But
ways to, again, I'll touch back on it. I really think we need to have focus on like mental health over everything. People don't become addicts if they don't have to fill a void.
Right.
I can say that from personal experience.
Yeah, I was watching this YouTube video. It was a little while ago, but it was talking about how addiction is like a warm hug, and how like that's kind of why people get addicted sometimes, is because like really they just need like some sort of love and affection and like understanding, but sometimes they don't have that, or maybe they do, but they can't reach it or something, you know. But like whatever the case is, it's like Yeah, that's why it seems like that's why people.
You don't have to have a specific event or a specific like problem or anything for a warm hug to feel good.
Right.
You just have to have enough distance between the last warm hug, or like a slightly bad day, or sometimes not even an awful day, but just not a better coping technique than a warm hug.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes.
They're just bad coping techniques. That's all addiction is. It's a bad coping technique, and we don't. A crazy thing, we don't even teach coping techniques in school.
That would be awesome if they did. I feel like they should teach
amazing.
like financial management and investing practices,
Yes.
and like how to start a business and how to cope with your problems, and like that would be probably
That's proper education.
build a better society than like you need to learn these academic classes that you. I mean, I get the value in that too, but to make that like the main priority is
The fact that they make it so regurgitative,
yeah.
like the fact that you literally just learn a fact and then you regurgitate it onto a sheet of paper and then you never have to remember that fact again.
Yeah.
Where's the motivation in learning?
I guess I get like it's good to experience all these different subject matters, because then you have like your foot in the door to maybe like take you down the path once you find something that you're passionate about. But yeah, to be like that demanding about it, it just seems like there's other ways that they could approach school systems.
Japanese culture is kind of cool with the school system. I mean, mind you, there's a high rate of suicide there, but that's not so much about schooling. That's more so about like, there's a severe lack of space there for the amount of humans there, and so it's hard to move up to the level that you want to be at in whatever career field, and that causes like that degradation of your mental health. But as far as their actual education system goes, it's very interesting and very cool. For the first like 2 years that you're in school, you're simply learning manners and how to be in society.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. Like how to. I mean, it's kind of a little weird because you learn how to obey.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than how to like form opinions necessarily, but ultimately you're not gonna be a shithead.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah, I mean,
teaching you how
obedience
not
to
to
an
be a
extent is
shithead.
good
Like,
thing, you know?
yeah,
You gotta think for yourself too, but it's all about the balance, right?
yeah. And then they go on from there to like, you know, that the kind of education that we get here in the States. And then right around the time that you would be starting high school, you then pick a trade that you want to go into and specialize in. Mm-hmm. And you kind of go through that trade, but that trade is about like that time period. As far as I understand, I've not been to Japan, but this is just how it was described to me from a Japanese lady that I knew. From there, then you go, if you want to change out of that trade, that is your time to do it. But it's kind of frowned upon in society to do so. Like, but if you can, then like, and you're not enjoying yourself in that field, then go try another one. Mm-hmm. And then come college time is where you really get like
honed in.
Yeah. You're in there. But I kind of like that structure a lot. Like the fact that they spend time teaching you manners instead of just throwing you to those teachers for the teachers to babysit whatever wild child comes in and then expect them to be able to give every child the attention that they need. Like it can't happen that way.
Yeah. Hopefully there's some school reform or something at some point in this
We
country.
need so much freaking reform
I know,
in this
in
country.
a lot of areas for sure.
Let's just freaking
just start over, start from scratch.
Drain it and start to refill. Like,
cool. If only.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
This was a blast.
Good. Glad to hear it. All right. Well, I guess thanks everybody for watching, and like and subscribe, and you can check Sarah's music out. I'll put a link to one of your videos in the description.
That sounds good.
And then
maybe a link to the Carry On Drive, so people can get
Is
involved
there
locally.
A link to it? Yeah.
There is. It's only on Facebook so far, but it's there. There's
Yeah.
something.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a way to contact me.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll put that in there too. Yeah, and then I was just debating about talking about like sponsors and stuff, but we'll not go there. There's links in the description for sponsorships if you want any screen printing supplies or an embroidery machine. Check it out.
Do that shit.
Thank you guys for watching.